I was 12 years old when it happened, back in 2008, when sleepovers still felt like the biggest adventure in the world. My best friend Jake's birthday was always the highlight of the year because his dad let us stay up late playing Halo and eating junk food until we passed out. That night, there were 6 of us. Me, Jake, his little brother Danny, plus 3 other guys from school. We'd spend hours goofing around, wrestling in the living room, and stuffing our faces with cake until our stomachs hurt. Around 2 a.m., Jake's dad finally shut off the Xbox and told us to crash. We spread out sleeping bags on the floor, still whispering and shoving each other until one by one, we drifted off. The last thing I remember was Danny muttering something about how someone's breath smelled like rotten Cheetos, and then nothing. Just the heavy, dreamless sleep of a kid who'd pushed his body to its sugar-filled limit. The next morning, we woke up groggy, but still buzzing from the night before. Jake's dad made pancakes and we were all arguing over who snored loudest when Danny, still half asleep, mumbled, "It was that guy in the hoodie. He was out cold." The room went dead silent. Jake frowned. "What guy?" Danny blinked, confused. "You know, the one sleeping by the back door. He had like a black hoodie on." My stomach dropped. There were only 6 of us. 6 sleeping bags. 6 plates of half-eaten cake. But as we looked around, a cold realization settled over us. No one had been wearing a hoodie. No one had slept near the door. And yet Danny swore up and down he'd seen someone there. Just a dark shape curled up in the shadows, motionless. Jake's dad laughed it off at first, but then his smile faded. "Wait," he said slowly. "Let me check something." He pulled out his phone. Jake's dad scrolled through the photos from last night, the screen casting a weird blue glow on his face. At first, everything looked normal. Us crammed around the cake, making stupid faces, wrestling in a pile of limbs. But then he stopped on one shot of us playing video games. My blood turned to ice. There, in the far corner of the room, barely visible in the shadows, stood a boy. He was taller than us, face half hidden under a black hoodie, just watching, not smiling, not moving, just there. "Who the hell is that?" Jake whispered. His dad zoomed in, but the image got pixelated. Just that hollow, unreadable expression. My skin prickled. I knew every kid at that party. This wasn't one of them. Panic set in fast. Jake's dad started calling every parent, voice tight with forced calm. "Hey, did your son wear a black hoodie last night?" One by one, the answers came back. No, no, no. Meanwhile, we tore through the house, checking closets, under beds, even the damn garage. Nothing. Then Danny, pale as milk, pointed at the back door. It was slightly ajar, the deadbolt never turned. Jake's dad swore under his breath. He always locked it before bed. A gust of wind pushed it open wider, and we all flinched. That's when I noticed the muddy footprints, small, like a kid's, leading from the door to the couch, then vanishing, as if whoever made them had just stopped mid-step and disappeared. We all just stared at those footprints, frozen. Jake's dad finally snapped into action, calling the cops, but the rest of us were stuck in this awful silence, our brains scrambling for some kind of explanation. Maybe a prank, but no one laughed. Maybe sleepwalking, but whose kid? The photos didn't. Plus, there was a 7th person in that house and none of us remembered him. I kept replaying the night in my head, trying to recall if I'd seen anything weird. Then it hit me, that weird moment when I'd gotten up to pee around midnight. The hallway light had been off and I'd thought I heard breathing slow and steady from the kitchen. I'd chalked it up to Danny or someone else sneaking snacks. Now my whole body went cold. Had someone been standing in the dark watching me walk past? The cops arrived and suddenly the house felt too small. Officers asking questions, jotting notes, their radios crackling with static. They checked the photos, scanned the backyard, even brought in a dog to sniff around. Nothing. No sign of forced entry, no reports of missing kids in the area. The lead cop kept saying, probably just some local teen messing around, but his voice didn't match his eyes. He looked uneasy. Before they left, one officer pulled Jake's dad aside and said something low that made his face go slack. Later, I overheard him telling Jake's mom, "They've had calls like this before, always a kid in a hoodie. Never the same description, never any leads." That's when I realized, whatever that thing was, it wasn't done, and it knew we'd seen it. The rest of that day was a blur of hushed conversations and nervous glances. Jake's parents insisted we all stay inside, but none of us could sit still. Every creak of the house made us jump. Danny wouldn't stop crying, and Jake kept pacing, his hands shaking whenever he checked his phone, like he expected to see a text from him. Around sunset, Jake's dad gathered us in the living room and said, "Look, we're safe now. The cops are patrolling the neighborhood." But his voice cracked on safe and nobody bought it. I kept staring at that spot by the back door, half convinced the shadows were thicker there, like they hadn't been empty in the first place. That's when I noticed something else. In one of the photos, the hoodie kid wasn't just standing there. His head was tilted, watching Jake blow out the candles, like he was waiting for something. Nightfall was the worst. Jake's dad double-checked every lock, but it didn't matter. We were all too wired to sleep, jumping at every noise. Around 3 a.m., I finally dozed off, only to jerk awake to Danny screaming. We all bolted upright, hearts pounding. "He's outside!" Danny gasped, pointing at the window. For a second, I saw nothing. Then, movement. A figure way too tall for a kid, standing under the streetlight across the road. The hoodie, the same blank, shadowed face, just staring at the house. We woke Jake's dad, but by the time he got outside, the street was empty. The cops came again, flashlights sweeping the bushes, but they found nothing. No footprints this time, no proof. Just us, wide-eyed and shaking, realizing one horrible thing. It knew where we lived, and it wanted us to know it was still there. The next morning, parents showed up in a panic to collect us. No one said much, just tight hugs and hurried goodbyes. Jake's mom was crying as she loaded their suitcases into the car. They were leaving town for a while. My mom didn't even scold me for climbing into the front seat like a little kid. She just death-gripped the wheel the whole drive home. Back in my room, I tore through my backpack, half expecting to find something off. A note, a weird object, anything. Nothing. But when I plugged in my phone to charge, a notification popped up. One new, video in your gallery. My stomach dropped. I hadn't taken any videos at the party. I clicked play. It was shaky, dark footage of us sleeping in Jake's living room. And there, in the corner, the hoodie kid was moving, slowly crouching beside Danny's sleeping bag, just watching him breathe. The video cut off there. I never told anyone. What could they even do? For weeks, I slept with the lights on. I'd jerk awake at every noise, convinced I'd see him standing in my doorway. The weirdest part? None of us ever talked about it again, not even at school. It was like we'd all silently agreed, if we don't say it out loud, maybe it won't be real. But then, a month later, Jake texted me a single photo without context. It was a screenshot from some local news article, a blurry security camera still of a playground at night. In the background, barely visible, was a tall figure in a hoodie. The caption read, "Police seek information after reports of a prowler." Jake's next message made my blood freeze. That's not the first one. I've been checking. He's been seen in 3 other towns now. Always near kids. Always at night. I didn't reply. Just deleted the thread and shoved my phone under my pillow. Because deep down, I knew the worst part wasn't that he was out there. It was that he remembered us too. Years later, we're all grown up, and that sleepover is just a creepy story we half laugh about at reunions. But sometimes, when I'm home alone late at night, I'll catch myself staring at the edge of my phone screen just for a second, wondering if I'll spot something in the background of an old photo. My wife thinks I'm paranoid. Maybe I am. But last winter, I got a call from Danny, now in college out of state. His voice was shaky. "You're not gonna believe this," he said. A kid at his dorm had reported a tall guy in a hoodie, standing outside his window at 3 a.m. No footprints in the snow, no proof, just like before. Danny hung up after saying, "He's real, and he's still doing it." I didn't sleep for days. I still don't know what or who that thing was. A ghost, some kind of predator, something worse? All I know is it's out there. Maybe it always has been. And if you're reading this, maybe you've seen it too. Maybe it was at your cousin's birthday party, lingering in the background of a photo. Maybe it was outside your window one night and you convinced yourself it was just a shadow. But here's the truth. It doesn't go away. It just waits. So next time you're at a sleepover and someone jokes about a guy in a hoodie nobody remembers, check the locks, check the photos, and for God's sake, check the back door. Back in high school, my two best friends, Jake and Mia, and I used to have sleepovers at Jake's family's old house every other weekend. The place was a creaky two-story colonial that had been in his family for decades, full of weird drafts, uneven floors, and this one hallway upstairs where the temperature would just drop for no reason. That Friday night, a storm rolled in hard, rattling the windows and making the whole house groan like it was alive. We were in the basement playing video games, when the power suddenly cut out, plunging us into total darkness. Laughing it off, we decided to grab flashlights from the garage, because of course the spooky house's breaker box was out there. The garage was detached, connected by this narrow, covered walkway that felt way longer in the dark. The second we stepped inside, the door behind us slammed shut, hard. At first we thought the wind had caught it, but when Jake tried the handle it wouldn't budge. The latch was old and finicky, so we figured it was just stuck, until we heard it. Footsteps. Upstairs in the house we'd just left empty. Slow, deliberate, like someone was pacing the hallway above the garage. Then, faint music. A staticky, distant tune that sounded like an old radio left on. Mia whispered, "Your parents aren't home, right?" Jake's face went pale. "They're in Florida." We all froze, listening to the footsteps creak across the ceiling. My heart was pounding so loud I was sure whatever was up there could hear it. Then out of nowhere, the garage lights flickered on. Bright, blinding like a camera flash. The problem? The power was still out. The rest of the house was pitch black, and the street lights outside were dead. The bulbs buzzed like angry wasps before popping one by one, plunging us back into darkness. Mia let out a choked gasp, and Jake started yanking at the door handle like his life depended on it. I remember the cold sweat on my palms, the way my breath came out in shaky clouds despite the humid summer air. After what felt like forever, the door finally gave way with a sickening crack. We stumbled back into the walkway, half expecting to see someone or something waiting for us. But the house was dead silent. Too silent. No footsteps, no music, just the distant rumble of thunder. Then we saw it, the front door, wide open, swinging slightly in the wind. We knew we'd locked it. The three of us stood there, staring at that dark doorway like it was the mouth of a cave. Jake whispered, "We need to get out of here." But the car keys were still inside, on the kitchen counter, right next to the stairs. The moment we stepped back inside, the air changed, thick and heavy, like walking into a freezer someone had just breathed in. The floorboards groaned under our feet, but not from our weight. It was the same slow, deliberate creaking we'd heard from the garage. Mia grabbed my arm, her nails digging in. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. Then, from upstairs, a sound that made my stomach drop. A wet, dragging noise like something being pulled across the carpet. Jake flipped open his phone for light, but the screen glitched, static and jagged lines cutting through the display. That's when we noticed the smell. Rust and mildew, like old rainwater trapped in a basement. We inched toward the kitchen, shoulders pressed together like we were moving through a horror movie. The keys were right where Jake left them, glinting under the dim glow of his dying phone. Just as he grabbed them, the fridge door swung open with a bang, making all of us jump. Inside, the light was off. No power, remember? But the shelves were covered in dark, dripping streaks. Mia let out a whimper. "That wasn't there before," she said. I didn't want to look closer. The dragging sound from upstairs started again, louder this time, like whatever it was had reached the top of the steps. We didn't wait to find out. We ran. We bolted for the front door, but it slammed shut before we could reach. It like an invisible hand had shoved it closed. The lock clicked. Jake rattled the handle, his voice cracking as he cursed. Behind us, the stairs creaked under slow, heavy footsteps. Not running, not panicked, just coming. Mia was hyperventilating, her back pressed against the door like she could melt through it. I grabbed an umbrella from the stand, useless, but it was the closest thing to a weapon, and turned just as the footsteps reached the bottom step. The hallway was empty, but the smell got worse, like rotting meat left in the sun. Then, from the laundry room, a sound that made my blood freeze. The washing machine turned on, a low, grinding hum. The power was still out. Jake kicked the door in a last-ditch effort, and somehow it worked. The old wood frame splintered, and we tumbled onto the porch. Rain soaked us instantly, but we didn't stop running until we were in the car, tires screeching down the street. None of us spoke. Mia kept looking back at the house like she expected to see someone in the windows. When we finally pulled into a 24-hour diner, we just sat there shaking. Jake's phone buzzed. It was his mom, texting to ask why the security system had alerted her that the laundry room door had been opened at 2:17 a.m. Problem was, their house didn't have a security system. We didn't sleep that night, just sat in the diner booth, jumping at every clatter of dishes, replaying everything in our heads. Around 5 a.m., Jake's dad called, his voice tight like he was forcing calm. "Did you kids leave the upstairs window open?" he asked. Jake's stomach dropped. We hadn't even gone upstairs. His dad continued. There were muddy boot prints leading from the window to the hallway, then stopping abruptly at the laundry room door. The weirdest part? The prints were inside out, like someone had walked backward but left perfect, detailed treads. And the soaked jacket in the laundry room? It was an old work coat, reeking of pond water, with the name Harrison stitched on the tag. Nobody in Jake's family knew a Harrison. When we finally went back the next day, the house felt different. Not haunted, just watched. The boot prints had dried into the carpet, impossible to scrub out. Upstairs, the window was still cracked open, screen torn like something had clawed its way in. But the worst was the basement. The video game controllers we'd dropped during the blackout were neatly placed on the couch, cords coiled in perfect loops, and on the TV screen, frozen mid-glitch, was a single frame of security footage none of us recognized. A blurred figure standing at the foot of the basement stairs, facing away, its head tilted at an unnatural angle. The timestamp read 1987. Jake's parents called the police, but they just filed a report for breaking and entering. No fingerprints, no signs of forced entry, just those impossible boot prints and the jacket, which disappeared from evidence a week later. The case went cold. We stopped having sleepovers. There, obviously. But a few months ago, Jake's mom sold the house. The new owners renovated everything, even replaced the carpets. Last I heard, though, their kid keeps talking about the man who stands in the hallway at night, and the washing machine still turns on by itself sometimes. I still think about that night, how the footsteps matched our heartbeats, how the garage lights came on without power, how whatever was in that house let us leave. Sometimes I wonder if it was waiting for us to run. If the real horror wasn't what we saw, but what we didn't. Mia refuses to talk about it. Jake moved out of state. And me? I check my locks twice now. Because here's the thing, nobody tells you about the supernatural. It doesn't feel impossible when it's happening. It just feels like the house is finally showing you what's always been there. Back in high school, my friend group was tight. Just 4 of us who'd known each other since middle school. We weren't the party types, so our idea of a wild night was cramming into Jake's basement, stuffing our faces with Cool Ranch Doritos, and playing Call of Duty until our eyes burned. That night in October was no different, just dumb jokes, Mountain Dew, and the kind of sleep deprivation that makes everything hilarious. Jake's parents were upstairs, but they'd given up trying to enforce a lights out rule years ago. Around 1 a.m., we finally crashed, sprawled across beanbags and an old couch, the TV still glowing with the Xbox home screen. I woke up sometime later, 2:03 a.m., according to my phone, to the weirdest sensation, like someone was watching me. My sleep-addled brain barely processed the figure standing over me, silhouetted against the dim blue light of the TV. Tall, weirdly stiff, just looming. I figured it was Ryan, our group's notorious sleepwalker. "Dude, lay down," I mumbled, rolling over. The figure didn't move at first. Then slowly, it turned and walked toward the basement stairs. I remember thinking, man, Ryan walks weird when he's asleep, before passing back out. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the basement windows and I woke up with that gross, sticky mouth feeling of too much soda and not enough sleep. Ryan was snoring in a beanbag. Jake was face down on the couch, and Tyler, always the early riser, was already scrolling through his phone. "Yo," I croaked, rubbing my eyes. "Ryan, you gotta stop sleepwalking, man. You scared the crap out of me last night." Tyler glanced up, confused. Ryan just groaned into his pillow. That's when Jake sat up, hair sticking in every direction. "Wait, what?" He looked dead serious. "No one got up last night." I laughed, assuming he was messing with me, until Tyler chimed in. "Yeah, dude. I was up till like 3 a.m. watching TikTok. Nobody walked past me. My stomach dropped. I described the figure, how it had paused over me, how it moved toward the stairs, and Jake's face went pale. My dad installed motion sensor cameras last month, he said slowly. After the break-in down the street, the room got too quiet. Even Ryan was awake now, staring at me like I'd just cursed us all. We crowded around Jake's laptop in the kitchen, shoulders bumping, the air thick with the smell of leftover pizza and something sharper. Nervous sweat. Jake pulled up the camera app, fingers trembling just enough for me to notice. The timestamp read 1:52 a.m., and at first nothing moved. Just the empty hallway, the faint glow of a nightlight. Then, there, the back door handle twisted slowly, clicked, and swung open. No force, no jimmying the lock, like someone had a key. A man stepped inside, tall, too tall, his head nearly brushing the doorframe, and dressed in what looked like a dark suit but wrong. Too stiff, like the fabric didn't bend right at the knees or elbows. He paused, tilting his head like he was, listening, then moved down the hall with this unnatural gliding walk. My throat locked up. That wasn't sleepwalking. That wasn't human. The footage jumped to the basement stairs at 2:03 a.m., same time I woke up. And there he was, standing over me, motionless, watching. The footage kept playing. The man, no, not a man, don't call it that, drifted through the house like he knew exactly where to go. Kitchen, living room, the foot of the stairs to Jake's parents' bedroom. Every few steps he'd stop, head cocked, like he was savoring the silence. At one point he paused in front of a family photo on the wall, reaching out with those two long fingers. The camera glitched for half a second, and when it cleared, his hand was inside the frame, touching the glass from inside the photo. Tyler made a noise like he'd been punched. Then came the worst part. 3:02 a.m. The thing walked back into the basement. We watched, breath held, as it stood at the bottom of the stairs, just staring at us sleeping. Ryan gagged when it leaned down over Jake, so close its nose almost touched his forehead. It stayed like that for 8 minutes, not moving, not breathing. Then, at 3:10 on the dot, it straightened up, turned, and walked out the back door. The second it crossed the threshold, the camera feed cut to static. No one spoke. My hands were shaking so bad I had to sit on them. Jake's mom found us still huddled around the laptop, pale as corpses, at 8 a.m. She took one look at our faces and knew. Something was wrong. But when we stammered out what we'd seen, her expression went from concern to patronizing worry. The kind adults get when they think you're exaggerating. Probably just a glitch in the cameras, she said, ruffling Jake's hair like he was still 10. Or one of you sleepwalking and the shadows made it look weird. We didn't argue. What could we say? Mom, a thing that wasn't human, licked its teeth 8 inches from my face last night. But then Jake's dad checked the back door. It was locked. Double locked, actually. Deadbolt engaged from the inside. His frown deepened as he inspected the handle. No scratches, no signs of forced entry. Just like the footage showed. The door had opened on its own. That's when Jake's parents got quiet. Not scared, but unsettled the way people get when reality doesn't line up. His dad deleted the footage. No use freaking yourselves out over nothing. But not before I saw him pause on that frozen second of static. His knuckles were white on the mouse. We never talked about it again. Not really. Just half jokes in the group chat. Yo, if a sleep paralysis demon offers you Doritos, say no. But the kind where you laugh too loud to cover the shake in your voice. Jake's parents got a security system with 24/7 monitoring. The kind that beeps if a moth flies too close to a window. Normal stuff. The kind of thing you do after a break-in. Not the kind of thing you do after something that doesn't need doors walks through your house. But here's what fucks me up the most. It knew we were there. It chose to watch us. And the way it moved, like it was looking for something. Or practicing. Because if it could touch a photo from the inside, what's to stop it from doing that to a mirror? Or a window? Or us? Sometimes when I'm half asleep I'll jerk awake, convinced I see a shape at the foot of my bed. Tall, still, and I'll lie there, sweating, begging my brain to please let it just be sleep paralysis this time.